All right, welcome people. Is that you, Michele Dempsey?
It is. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, but something's wrong with your
You can't see me, can you? Can you see me?
That's better. YouTube works, but it doesn't work from the perspective of hearing what you have to say.
Hello?
Now, we just need to
Audio? Let's see here. You can't hear me?
we can. There seems to be other noises happening.
There's no noise behind me. Are you getting some feedback, Richard?
It's better now, whatever you've done.
Okay.
Oh no, it's not.
It's not?
Damn. Do you have another laptop or?
No, but there's literally no noise behind me. So,
Right.
let's see.
Just try logging out and come back in.
Okay. Yep. Let me just.
It's
It's a very new app, so I don't know.
Log out. There we go. I mean, you got to say, technology is pretty good. We can't really complain. But you kind of we're now at the stage where we expect it to be perfect all the time for everything. And here we are all sitting in a room. We're all sitting in different parts of the world. And we're all sitting in a room able to do this. It's pretty cool. I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't possible. So anyway, hopefully she logs back in and gets a clean connection. But anyway, how's everybody? Hope you're all well. Michele is pretty amazing. She is an amazing woman. I call her MDem, Michele Dempsey. A real character. Very good at marketing now. She's in our mastermind group and she's done some very cool things which you'll see today and some of it you may be able to replicate. So it's the value of having these sessions is I get some people I know are doing good stuff and then we just dig into what they're doing. Because I know, it's all very well me saying do this, but it's always good to see a real architect doing real stuff. So what we'll do is hopefully if we get decent sound, I'll interview Michele on some of the questions I've got, and then you guys can at any time type in questions. I'll monitor the questions as we're going through. And hopefully you guys pick up some clues and insights and frameworks for how you should be thinking and maybe some ideas of things that you can do. But don't just look for things that you can do. I mean, they'll be obvious. Notice the way that she thinks and that type of stuff as well, the below the surface stuff, because that's part of pulling it all off. So anyway, just type in where you're from, guys. And type in where you're from. So Christopher Toddy, Cleveland, Ohio. Steve Nichols here from Colorado. What else we got? There we go. Francis Klein, Montclair, New Jersey. Michele Dempsey is back. Oh, she's re-logged in. Sorry. Okay, you're back, and I need to make you a presenter again. I was just giving you a nice build-up, Michele. Right, make presenter. Now let's fingers crossed that we get a better feed for you. I'm just trying to send a. Are you getting the link I'm sending you? I'm just trying to. Oh, Michele Dempsey display as a panelist. Yes. Okay, there you go.
I got it. Hold on.
Yeah. It's kind of funny.
Can you see me? I'm here.
I can see you and I can hear you. But there's a whole lot of noises coming through. I don't know if it's your fault.
I don't know. Let's see. Noise was it's a brand new laptop, and there's no background noise here at all.
Yeah.
So,
What about? Do you have any AirPods like AirPods that you would plug
yeah.
in?
Let's see if we can make this work.
I reckon that'll do it. Have you got a Mac?
No. Hold on. I should need it.
Look intelligent.
Is that better? Is that better?
Right. Yes, it is better. Yeah, it's a bit better. Okay, we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to read the intro for this because it reminds me. Right. So this month we're going to interview Michele Dempsey, sound permitting. I said Michele is a force of nature. MDem started with a good business, but turned herself into a high-end niche specialist when she created a new category for her firm and positioned herself as #1 in that category. A very smart move. The results have been astounding. Michele is regular speaker at events and has a lot of really good projects on the books. So I believe if you want to know how to move yourself from the pack and into high-value boutique firm, then the entertaining MDem will share what she's learned. So I suggested that we might talk about how you created a new category and how you positioned yourself as #1. I also thought we might talk about what you do for marketing on a month-by-month basis so people can see where the nuts and bolts of what you're doing anyway, and any lessons learned, shortcuts, or what not to do by someone who's probably done both.
For sure.
So why don't you give us a bit of an overview on who you are and yeah, give us your background first and what type of work you do and who you do it for.
Okay, sure. So I started DXM 15 years ago, believe it or not. And prior to that, I had worked for some pretty well-known firms. Bowen and Ski Jackson, which is Peter Bowen, who was the gold medal winning architect in the firm, was an AIA Firm of the Year. And then I worked at Bell. So I worked for them in Philadelphia, and I worked for Bell in Washington, D.C. And they're a very well-renowned architecture planning firm too, and I believe they also got AIA here. So I had a really great training ground. Loved all my bosses, loved the people I worked with. But I mostly worked on very high-end projects, right? And whether they were university or residential or commercial, they were very high-end. So when I moved back home to Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the office for people out there listening, the American version.
Hang on, Michele. Sorry. Christopher Toddy's, because the sound's kind of.
It's a little iffy.
Yeah. Christopher Toddy's come up with a good idea saying, can you call in rather than do it through the mic on your speaker so we can see you, but maybe. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a number.
Okay.
Because
it's probably really annoying, right?
Yeah, it's not.
I understand. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to drop the number. Yeah. United States. Okay, so 951, and it is worth listening to what old MDem's got to say, because so 951 384 3421. Good idea, Chris Toddy. Good idea. And you'll probably be asked for an access code when you do that, Michelle. And I'm going to drop that in the chat window to you. Michelle, hang on. I'm going to send a message to you in fact, I'll do it in Slack. But I've done it in the chat window. Sorry, what was that?
Can you read me the access code by any chance?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Or I've dropped it in Slack. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see them both at the same time.
Okay.
Okay,
So it's three. Oh, you want me to read it out?
Yeah.
Okay. 315 056 565.
Your audio is followed by the pound or hash.
All right. Now you'll probably come back in here and ask me. I can hear you. No, I need to get you on the. Attendees. Sorry, everybody. It just happens sometimes with the tech. You've called in. I need to make the phone now the presenter so that we can hear you. So I'm just not seeing you come up on the attendees list at the moment. So are you in the, have they told you you're in the, I can't hear you, you've muted your, see, Chris Toddy's here, he's called in. You've muted your computer screen, so I'm not hearing that. I'm not seeing you come up yet as an attendee.
Am I here?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me without any feedback?
That sounds beautiful.
Okay, yay.
That sounds beautiful. Crystal.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for that. Your patience, Michelle.
No, and thanks for everybody else's patience. I hope we're still hanging on.
That's good. That's good. All right. So start again. Just assume we couldn't hear you at all. And yeah. So who are you? Where are you from? What did you do? Where did you come from? And who do you do it for?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I think, as I was saying before, and I'll quickly skim over it, I worked for two great firms before I started my firm 16 years ago. I worked for Boland Seminsky Jackson in Philadelphia. So a lot of people know Peter Boland. He won the AAA gold medal. And I worked for Beyer Blinder Bell Architects and Planners out of New York City, but I was there when they were starting their Washington, D.C. office. I was working with Hanny Hassan, who I love all my former bosses to this day, and the people I worked with. It was great training ground. But the projects I worked on at these two great firms were very high-end projects, right? And they were large, institutional, higher education, commercial, residential, you name it. And so when I moved back to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I put this out there before, home of The Office, the American version of The Office, which we have a great relationship with the show. When I moved back, it was to design a house I had designed a house for my parents, which was a labor of love. And of course, the two people in the world I'd want to most give that to is my parents. And I just thought I was moving back to see the house through construction. And then I'd go back and work with Annie, but what happened was I fell in love with home and with Scranton and with being near my family, and I was having a great time. And I thought, it's these mid-sized cities like Scranton that really need the talent and the architecture, and I had some great training, so I started a firm. I decided to start a firm. Now, the issue, which I think many people who start a firm come to face with, is I had been working on these very large, high-end, high-profile projects, and now I was just a young girl starting a firm and putting my shingle out, who nobody really knew or knew what I did or what I was capable of. And so it was that trust factor and that who are you and prove your competence and all these things. And I looked young and I, was young. So I could see why people didn't instantly want to throw all their money at me. And so I really had to start from the beginning on these small projects, mostly residential. And I was like a fish out of water, like teaching myself this entirely new way of doing things while learning how to run a business, while learning how to market my business and all that, stuff that I know a lot of us are very, very familiar with. So what did I do? I took anything that came along, like, whatever it was, just if it was a job, I took it. And so for a long time, I was a generalist. And then what happened was I ended up getting a retail client out of Las Vegas. I could go through that whole story, but that would probably take up a lot of time. But I ended up doing a lot of work out in Las Vegas for this retail client. Retail projects turn over very quickly, and they're all very brand oriented, right? It's about building a brand. Each little project is its own unique brand experience. And then I started to get some corporate projects, and I think a lot of having to learn business on my own and learn marketing on my own, and coming from an entrepreneurial family and doing a lot of, they were building a new uniform and linen supply plant at that time. I was doing their offices, and I really wanted to tell their story and bring the brand into that firm. All of this started to coalesce and come together, and I really realized I loved doing anything that had to do with creating a brand experience and a brand and bringing it into the workplace and the intersection of brand and the built environment. And it sort of happened naturally over time that, as I did these projects and started doing more and more of them and kind of naturally bringing the brand in, and then my clients and these became very successful, right? Like I'm watching, because we have one thing we're very proud of is once we get a client, we don't lose them, right? And so if there's repeat work to be had, we get the repeat work. So I grew kind of quickly, relatively quickly, up to about 10 people. And I think a lot of people out there can also relate to that. Oh my God, I'm just feeding the machine now, and I'm managing, and I'm not doing the work anymore, and I'm not enjoying this. And this is like, I'm waking up at 4 a.m. with like sweating, wondering where the next project's coming from. Can I keep everybody employed? Like, it became a little bit of a little bit of a nightmare, quite, if I'm being very, very honest. And for the first time, at one point, for the first time in my life, I kind of went, do I really want to do this? Right? Do I really want to have a firm? What I had always wanted to do. I wanted to run a business before I wanted to be an architect. And I was like sitting there looking myself in the mirror and saying, is it worth this stress? Is it worth this? Is it worth it? And so a few things happened at that time. At the time that was, the busiest and one of the most stressful periods of my life, I decided to adopt 2 boys from Kyrgyzstan who were older. They were 7 and 11 at the time. And it made me, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this. But what it made me do was rethink and reorganize everything in my life, everything. And so I had to do that. And what it really gave me with my business was almost a fresh start. And so I kind of rebuilt it with truly this amazing core of people who kind of stuck with me through all those decisions and maneuvers. And I'm going to say we rebuilt it together, and it has been. And then very soon after that, one of the people was our business manager, started getting AMI emails, and so I joined this group. And what happened once I did that, because I think what we were starting to discover on our own was that there was this sort of process that we did that worked, that made our clients a lot of money and brought them a lot of success. But we didn't have a name for it, right? It was just a thing that we did, and it worked, and we saw the results, and you can measure the results easily in retail. We started measuring them in the corporate world too. And I remember Richard sitting with you and Peter Toohey and kind of drawing a diagram at one of the summits and naming this thing and calling it a strategic branded experience. And this is what we're going to do. And this is, you need to give it a name, and it's a framework and a process, and you do it every time, and just so give it a life, give it a name, give it a brand. And we did. And that was really a turning point, right? That took us into that specialist category, and we just ran with that, and also made the decision at that point to really not do residential anymore, like to really run with a niche. And I realized too, I know there are a lot of residential architects probably listening to this, and you guys are, I'm sure, so good at what you do. And I know from doing it that it is a lot of stress. It's a lot of psychology, and it's a lot of hand holding, and it's a lot of like really bringing people through a process that they've often never been through before. And what I realized for myself, that as much as I loved doing the residential work, the work itself, I didn't enjoy that part of it. And on the corporate side, clients care a lot, and they really do care, and they tend to have worked with professionals or architects before. It's not as much hand-holding, it's not as much emotional investment and trials and tribulations. So I just enjoy, I have fun in that world. I have so much fun in the corporate and branding world and retail banking. This is sort of where we live right now. And it's not that we don't do any residential, by the way. We always have a little residential on the books, but it's not what we're out there marketing. And the residential we do is fun for people who really, just an example, we're working on a pretty big house renovation right now, that when the client came to me, I said, I'm sorry, we're really so busy right now. Let me give you the name of some other architects. And she said, no. She said, what's the issue? I said, well, I probably can't take you for 4 months. And she's like, okay, I'll wait. So I said, really? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay then. And she was fine with the fee and everything. We're having a wonderful relationship because, they're willing to kind of work on our schedule. So it's not that we don't do any. Niche doesn't keep you from doing everything. It just lets you, focus on the thing you really want to do and that you're really good at. And so
I just want to unpack some of the things you said, because you've covered a lot, and it's important. Now, what have I got here? You've seen my screen. I don't know if I want to show my screen. I just want to unpack some of the stuff for people. So Michele was doing a bit of residential, probably a bit of everything, anything that came in. She knew an area she liked. She was looking for what's the high value result I can get for people and that I like doing. She was already doing some stuff around branding and things like that. So she already had kind of a superpower, and she had her own methodology, but she hadn't packaged it up in a way, she hadn't bundled it up and put it into a pack that people could easily understand. It was just something they did. And she would talk about it, but not in a way that probably people could grasp or take on board as quickly as they can now. So what she did was she took the proprietary method she does, and it doesn't really matter whether you do residential, commercial, or industrial. Most of you have probably got your own proprietary way of doing things, but she particularly had one and knew what it was, and it was just, it's how to turn your space into a branded experience or a branded space. And there were certain attributes that she would include, and we can talk about the 5-leaf clover and things like that. But what she did, she packaged it up, she gave it a name, she standardized the process that she used and formalized it, and went from being abstract maybe she already had the process, and she targeted and started talking about the results and benefits that this unique mechanism can deliver for her ideal client. So if I was to sum up marketing, it's you've got to find a high value result for a high value client. You need both. You need a high value result for a high value client, and ideally, and where there's not many perceived options for getting that high value result to that high value client. They don't see there being too many options, right? So just to unpack it a little bit more, sorry. But what she told us she did, but she does talk fast because there's lots of things going on in her mind. She's a fast thinker. What she did was she specialized in, and she created a new category. So tell us about this new category you created. And by creating a new category of, I guess, design or a methodology for getting the design done, by creating this new category, she was now the only one in it, because she's the only one talking about it, because she just made it up, sort of.
Sort of. I mean, in a way, yes, but it is a framework. There is a process that we use. There are these 5 distinct components to that framework, and and that's what falls under what we now call the strategic branded experience framework. And then we gave it a little little punch there. We tied it into our X, and we have all our components, right? And so as a part of this framework, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be sustainable. It's going to be based in research and psychology, because that's a really important component of this. It's going to be a branded environment, so it's going to tell your story and enhance your culture. And you're going to be working with a boutique firm that gives you personalized experience, right? And all these things we found, when we do each of those steps very well, we produce return on design for our clients, always. And so we measure that too. So that's kind of what put us into the specialist category, and our clients respond to it. And now it helped us really parse what it is we do and continue to hone the message and clarify it and help people understand, say it in a very simple way that they get it. So sometimes we say we operate at the intersection of brand and the built environment. Sometimes we say we translate brand into the built environment. And sometimes we say we design inspiring workplaces that express your brand, right? So however we say it, but we always want to tell them what their problem is too, right? Because we solve a problem. So we always say, the problem is your unbranded, uninspiring workplace is costing you top talent, because that's what our clients care about, attracting and retaining top talent. That is their number. There's a lot of other things we could say, but that's their number one, concern. So we design these inspiring workplaces that express your brand and attract and retain top talent, enhance your culture, and improve the bottom line. And people get it like that. Right?
So because this is this is one of the key points. Is this defining a new category, defining what it is, positioning yourself at the center of that universe, and being able to do it quickly, clearly, and you've got it's 5 things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like your lucky Irish 5-leaf clover. What was it like before you'd done that, and then after you've done it? What was the contrast? And before you answer, everybody on this call can do this type of concept. You may not do it for strategic brand experiences, obviously, but you need to find your own methodology, and you can do this strategy yourself by listening to what Michelle's saying. Okay.
Yeah, and I would say, right, so our 5 components are things that we are master that, right? This is like it's hard for anybody to copy this framework, because we have such deep experience in each of these 5 components, and somebody may have 3 of them, somebody may have 4 of them. Almost nobody has all 5. So right. I suggest that everybody out there find what it is that you are master at and can put together that nobody else can do, right? And then that's your niche. And so what life was like before it was harder to market what we do in a way that was clear to who we were talking to, in a way that that we even had the language for it. And once we landed on that strategic branded experience framework, we started to know exactly what it is we do. We started to know how to talk about it. We started to know what projects to take and not take. So we made some really big decisions. Like, we came up with our own vision, mission, and values, and we sort of did our own visioning, because we do this for clients. And we decided that any project that comes that doesn't fall inside of our framework and inside our vision, mission, and values, we're not going to take, because we're just going to waste time on it, and not have room for projects that meet what it is we want to do, what we love to do, and what we're really super good at, right? And so now, I mean, this year, Richard, we've talked about it. I've said no to some projects that were scary to say no to, right? Like, it was like, but it's paid off, right? It's very much paid off. And we made another decision that we were only going to take A clients. And then the only way we would take a C client is if they paid us a lot of money. But even then, I don't know, sometimes it might not even be worth it, because the A clients just value what you do. The C clients don't. And the people who value what you do will pay you for what you do, because they get it, right? They get it. And they get that, like you say, we're not going to major in minor things. It's never our fee that's the driver of the project. It's the cost of construction. It's the mistakes that are made when you're not using an expert. It's, not understanding the research and that goes into a great layout, starting with not taking more space than you need, and then understanding the impact of natural light, and working so closely with clients to get their space to work so perfectly for them, and that's what's going to produce the results. And so let's not fight over our fee. That's a silly place to keep our attention. Let's keep it on the construction and on delivering the return for you, the return on design investment. So we've been really
question.
Yeah.
Question. How do you define, because you cover so much, I just have to unbundle some of the stuff. So how do you define an A client? How do you define an A client? What is it for you?
Well, so an A client, when you get a sense, when sometimes you know them and sometimes you don't, but you get a sense when you talk to them and you start talking about what it is you do and how they're receptive to it. So an A client is going to immediately get what you do and value it, and they're going to, when you talk about your proposal, they're not going to, they don't just ask how much does it cost. They want to hear about what it is you do. They want to hear about the results it produces. They want to go see spaces you've done. Like they're interested and they're engaged. And when it gets into the project, they trust you, because you've created that rapport. And so some of our clients, like one project we did recently, and I have to say almost every project on the books right now, we have clients who just, there's not a lot of back and forth and haggling over what the design is. It's like they just say, no, we love it. Okay, go. But we give a lot of value too to them. Like we took one, we had a furniture system we wanted to use, and we took a client to New York City, and we had a trip to the Time Warner, offices, and like they felt like $1 million. They were treated like VIPs for the day, and they also got to see that everything we've been doing with them and for them is not just step to step. Is that right? In step with what like the Time Warner offices are, but in some ways ahead of, like, the thinking's a little ahead. So that was cool too. So one, they value it, they trust you, they pay you without any, they're happy to pay you. There's no complaint over it. There's no what was this or was that, or like nitpicking. They just get it. They trust you, and you deliver for them, and you're trustworthy, right? So there's that. So an A client, like they value what we do, and we value our relationship with each other, and we really call them sort of client partners, because we become a part of their business. Like I can speak to you about my clients' businesses as deeply and as knowledgeably as people who work there,
Wow.
And that's important too.
That's a big distinction that you've just given me, is that, because what I was writing down is, you deliver, right, the starting point is you have to be able to deliver a high value result for a high value client, right? And Michele was very clear about the high value result that her firm can deliver. It's that around that strategic brand. So she got that, right? And that can be hard for some people to define. What is my high value result, right? So she got that. Once she was clear about that and she could articulate it, then it sounds like it became much easier for the clients to understand the high value result that you were delivering.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore,
Definitely.
because they can now see the high value result they're delivering, because you can explain the high value result that you produce, they now switch off price and into getting the value that they know you can deliver. And when you're delivering a high value result like you're doing, and they know you're delivering a high value result, and you're both working on the result, you're not working on the input so much, you're both working on the result. You're actually, well, you said the word, we become partners. And the reason you become partners is because you are partners in getting a result for them. You're not just partners in putting up a new building, because that putting up a new building is very tactical. But getting a significant result, because Michelle's focused on the result and not just the building, she's focused on the result. They want to go into partnership with her, and they treat her as a partner, not as an outsourced architect who's going to build some walls for us.
We don't think we've been successful unless they're successful, right? So that's a given, and they know we have a track record now of that. So it's sort of we're batting 1,000 and delivering those results. So they trust that. And another thing, Richard, I just want to put out, because a lot of times when clients come to us, we have some sort of relationship, they've been referred, or we know them, or whatever it might be. So you sort of have that level of trust. But we got a call the other day. It was a developer from New Jersey who wanted to do multifamily residences in a town in a city next to us. And we'd done multifamily there. We were good at it. We like it. It's not what we market, but we're good at it. We like it. And for a good fee, we'll do it because it's fun. But it has to be an A client, right? So in the past, what I would do, they're like, hey, we got your name from a wonderful referral from somebody in the city who knew we did good work. So, and they said, could you, give us a price to do this 10-story building? Here's a picture of it, or could you come down and see it? And so I gave them the LCC, the low cost consultation, what I called a feasibility report. Right. And I said the whole thing, I said, listen, and it laid out so clearly, like, we will come down, we will look at it, we'll give you a rough order of magnitude, cost of construction, we'll walk through it with a contractor who does this work, who we have worked with many times, who's doing a building nearby, and we'll give you a rough estimate of our cost. And for all that, it'll be this much money. And then you don't have to use us. This is about establishing rapport, but you don't have to use us, but you can use this report if you go to somebody else. And the whole thing that we talk about with the LCC. And at the end, it's like, they didn't read it. They're like, yeah, but can we have a price by Friday? And I just went back and I'm like, well, no. I'm like, this is how we diagnose a project. When we give a number, we believe in it, we stand by it, and this is our process to do that. And so I just did the win back email the other day, which is a killer, by the way. I love that email. It works so well. I didn't get anything back from them yet. I have a feeling that these are developers who are just out there treating architects like a commodity and pitting us against each other at price, with barely any information on the project, right? That, they just want to get the lowest number and run with the, whoever gives that number. They're not seeing the value. They're not, it's a little crazy to me that's how they want to approach it. But I feel like I dodged a bullet, right? Because it was you could not argue with how logical that LCC was, that feasibility report, right? There's just way too much logic. And then I said, it's even about building a big project. Let's build a report with each other. Maybe we'll like each other, maybe we won't, but we'll be stuck in this big project. And so I just kind of feel like it's not even a thought. I'm just like, okay, it didn't work out. It wasn't going to be a good fit for us. It wasn't an A client. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah. That's brilliant.
So we do.
I just want to say, if anyone's got a question for Michelle, now's a good time to type it in. Type it in now. All right. So one of the other things I was going to talk about is what do you do? Give us an overview of on a monthly basis. What sort of things are you doing on a monthly basis?
Yeah, so newsletters are a given. We fall behind a little bit sometimes, but generally, we get those out, and they make a difference, and they keep you top of mind. As you know, that's super important. And we can attribute one newsletter to definitely getting a nice project. So I think their biggest value is keeping you top of mind with people, and then also, I think that's actually and educating people and letting them know about you. One thing we started doing was we put together a pretty cool presentation, about what we do in the strategic branded experience, and we called it, I think we called it If These Walls Could Talk, and we started a little lecture circuit. And it's amazing when you ask people if you can give a lecture, how many people are looking for content, looking for something of value to give to their audiences, right? So we gave this lecture, for an executive women's group that I'm part of, and at the Wilkes-Barre Connect Innovation. We give it at a few different places where, like you said, where do you want to fish? And then you find we were sort of looking for our ponds, and that talk has led to two projects, and that sort of paid for itself, which is great. So we're always looking for new places to kind of go and give that. And Enoch has been talking about turning that into a webinar, and so that's another way we do it. But we have this great, and then we also use that talk. It's amazing once you put it together, and it's a good talk. We will use it if we have an opportunity to get in front of somebody, like we got in front of a bank, and we kind of gave a modified version of it, kind of geared and tailored to the bank, and we got to do a project for them. So you can use it for a lot of different things. So that's helpful. Another thing has been working with our vendors. So we give a lot of vendors a lot of work. Specifically because we do these branded environments, we work with people who do the installation of the graphics and stuff, and they're always out there working with companies. So we try to give work to each other. So it's just like, hey, do you know any companies you're working with that could use more than just a couple stickers on a wall, right? Because what we do is not just about putting messages on a wall. It's so much deeper, right? It's the whole branded, strategic branded experience. And so if you just did that, it wouldn't be impactful. You have to do it all. But so they're out there already working sometimes on the marketing materials with these guys, and we're like, hey, let's get the brand off paper and into the built environment. So we work with our vendors, and that's led to some really great leads so far, and one project. And then it's interesting. I went down to speak to. I'm bringing Andrea in my office as a partner, and I was speaking to a group that they do several things. Sometimes they do wealth management, they do business and finance management, and so I was speaking to them, and I was telling them, I had to tell them about the business and what we're up to, and they were so sort of entranced by what we do that they sent us to an IP lawyer, and then started thinking of businesses that we should talk to because we have an affinity. So marketing firms they work with who do the 2D and digital stuff, and they felt like we should talk to each other. So we did that. And the one company was like, hey, would you like to be on a panel in front of this Chamber of Commerce with 60 businesses you don't know in a new area? And I was like, yes, thank you. That would be awesome. So it's kind of like looking at, and you said it, Richard, who are people who are already talking to your ideal clients, right? And of course, this group, I never even thought about it. I was just down there, trying to bring one of my amazing team members into, even more into the team. And all these other conversations unfolded, and I realized, oh my God, they are already working with a lot of our ideal clients. And so they're asking me, can you introduce us to your clients? And then we'll introduce you to some of ours. And that's kind of been a nice new network too. So that's kind of how, and that's good because then it's coming through relationships, right? They have relationships already. We have relationships. It's not like starting with a cold, call. It's starting with a very warm introduction. So those are some ways. Marketing.
So I've got a question here from someone called Peter Tui. Not sure if you know him.
Hi, Peter. Not like him. Questions, right?
No, that's right. Well, I've interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He says, it sounds like your clients are all over America. How does a relatively small firm market to an entire nation?
Well, here's the truth. I hope someday they're all over America. We do have an amazing client in Las Vegas. So we do work, around there. But most of our projects are actually within a 2 to 3 hour radius of where we live right now. And I'd say probably the majority of them within a 1.5 hour radius. So I think we're gradually moving out as we, because we're starting to move, definitely outside of Northeast Pennsylvania, which is great. And I think that's coming through these relationships. So one of the vendors that I spoke about, they're based in the Lehigh Valley. I'm in the Lackawanna Valley. So the businesses that they're bringing to the table are new businesses from a completely new area. And so that's how we're kind of reaching beyond our borders, if that makes sense. And then, personal relationships. I had a friend who had moved down to the Lehigh Valley too, and was working in a position where she could introduce me to people. So it's mostly been through relationships so far. I am one of our next big marketing pushes is our website, because I don't think right now it's reflecting completely who we are. It's fine, it's good, but it's not working for us, or it's not doing work for us. We need to fix the messaging and the sales funnel and the SEO, the things they'll work for us. So that might help. Because certainly with SEO we can get a little bit more targeted outside of our area. But right now, like I said, we're in that 2 to 3 hour radius.
Okay. What are some mistakes that you've learned from? Surely you haven't. Sounds like everything you've done's turned to gold, Michele.
No, God, no. I sort of just glossed over that whole first 14, 15 years, didn't I? Right? I don't know. Do we have 2 hours to go over all the mistakes?
No, we don't. Just a couple of mistakes just a couple that other people would relate to, but you found a way to.
Yeah.
Learn something.
I think it was one, just growing in numbers and in gross revenue rather than growing in profit and in the right kind of clients, right? And so I have a smaller team right now, but we're more profitable. And then I'm very careful about who I work with now. Really super careful about it. I hire extremely slowly because our core team is so special, right? Like the people I work with, they've got my back, I've got theirs, which we trust each other implicitly. We are just we've got this really tight core team. So the way we choose to hire now, we're lucky to have an architecture university nearby, and we bring in interns. We'll take in 3 at a time, and we kind of cultivate them. And they're not all going to stay. They're, some of them are off afterwards, but we're kind of cultivating them and looking for that next best fit. And they don't necessarily have to be from that school, but we certainly do it through internships, like summer internships and whatnot, because our culture is so important. I think, keep having a culture that fits your vision, mission, and values, and having them know what it is when they come into it. So I think identifying what that is for your company is so important. You have to know who you are, and you have to know where you're going, and you have to be able to tell somebody coming in what that is, because they need to know if they want to sign up for it or not, right? And if they're not into it, you don't want them there. Like, it's not going to be a good fit. They have to be excited about what it is you're doing and what you're up to in the world. Not every architect graduating from school wants to work in brand in the built environment. Like, some of them just want to, go do the high-end avant-garde stuff. They want to be the next, Bjarke Ingels, and that's awesome. Like, go do that. Awesome. But like, the people who love what we do have a blast doing it, and we just have a really good time. We have Friendly Fridays, we call them, where we kind of at 4:30, we'll pop some wine or we'll go for a drink. And we were doing that while having our 2020 visioning meeting, a few weeks ago. And one of the interns was just sitting here, and it's just at one point we were laughing about something, and she just turned with the wine in her hand. She's like, "I just love working here," and it was awesome, right? It was like heartwarming and awesome, and like that. So those are things that I've learned, like who you work with and the culture that you create, and understanding who you are with your vision, mission, and values is so important. And that growth for growth's sake is not. It's certainly not something I aspire to now. I want to grow. I want to grow profitably with the right clients, with the right projects, with the right people, and have fun doing it. So I have not woken up with a 4 o'clock sweat in a long, long time, right? Which is just, I can't even tell you how great that feels to love my business and my work and my job again. Oh, I can't hear you, Richard.
Sorry, I keep muting myself because we've got some very loud cicadas outside that I think probably is bugging everybody. But I'm going to sum this up, right? So what I've taken away is, and there is a question. I'll read out your question in a minute, Christina. What I've taken from what you've said today is one of the biggest assets or the biggest things that you do, which makes you successful, is your clarity. Mm-hmm. And you've got clarity in the value and the high value that you can deliver. You've got clarity around that, which is that strategic branded experience and return on design. You've got clarity around the clients that you want. Mm-hmm. They're people who resonate with they're people who resonate with the high value result that you can deliver. So mm-hmm. people who want that. You've got clarity around what you're trying to achieve, your goals. And you've got clarity around the type of people that you want on board with you.
Yeah.
So
might be one of the most important, that last one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, but those people can't be ignited unless you have given them clarity about everything else. So once you've got clarity about everything else, and I find, like working with, I've worked with a lot of architects over 6 years now, and or business owners even. Most of them don't have this level of clarity around who they are, what result they do. If I said to most architects, what result do you deliver? What tangible, measurable, result can you live? Very few can answer it, and that's what makes their market. It's one of the reasons their marketing is difficult, because they can't communicate a value that's not airy-fairy. And so your clarity is like a massive reason for your success. So well done for that.
It's never not scary to specialize, right? When you're a generalist, you feel like if I declare I'm a specialist in something, I'm going to lose all this other work, and I really feel like it's 100% opposite. Like that other work will still be there if you want it, right? But like if you just, what do you really love? What wakes you up and gets you excited? Like I love coming to work every day, and that wasn't always the case. Again, there's but it is now. It absolutely is. Like I really love it because I love the work we do. Like so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one final question, and it's from Christina Fu, and she asked, "Do you tell the leads what your culture is before the first meeting?"
Do you tell the who? The
leads, I guess the potential people who want to have a meeting with you. Do you tell them about your culture and what you stand for and what you're all about before that first meeting? When do they learn about all that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it depends on, it's just like this conversation. It free flows. It goes this way or that way, and it feels right to tell them about it. I do. It's because you want to show that you practice what you preach, right? That's important, that you've done it for yourself. But in our first conversations, I really focus on what's in it for them, and kind of how I can guide them through their journey, right? And make them the success at the end. So it's much more, kind of speaking to what they need to hear to know that we understand their problem, we can solve it, we're competent, and that we're going to get them where they need to go. They don't want to hear as much about us. It's much more about them.
Okay, great. One final thing. We've got about 30 seconds. Did you say you had a shock and awe box behind you?
I do, yeah.
Give us a 30-second quick view of you. Everyone loves a good shock and awe box. All right, very nice.
So when you open the shock and awe box, it starts with, these are also our newsletters, right? So we turn our newsletters, it's the hard copy newsletter that we send out to our Dirty 30. So it goes out digitally. It gets sent out as a hard copy to our Dirty 30, and then it goes into our shock and awe box. So these first, I don't know how many, are just every newsletter we've ever done. And, they're nice. They open up and they've got a standard look to them that people expect to get in the mail with their tea bag. And then, so I'll get through them. So they get all our newsletters, and then they get, these are like some projects we did that really show the branded environment, right? Like here's what we're up to, and here's what it does, and here's creating a sense of family, because family businesses love to tell their stories, and talk a little bit about the framework and purpose-driven, how we bring purpose and meaning into the workplace, and then how you can tie it into performance management and all these great things. So we have two projects that kind of tell that story, and also talk a little bit about return on design, and also talk about like how happy the testimonials in them, of course, and how happy the clients are, and how great the space works for them, and blah, 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 blah. Then we include a couple of the things, thank you, AMI, that we tailored from things that you guys have in the vault. So we put those in there too. Just in this case, it's, commercial related. And then it's just a nice little portfolio of our projects, right? So, look at us, aren't we great? And then, you can kind of get a little sense, right, of all that. And that's our shock and awe box in a nutshell. So,
right. When you send that, at what point in this process do you send them that, or give that to them?
It depends. Sometimes when we're going to meet them for the first time, we bring it, because it's a nice little thing to give them, and to leave, it feels like they're getting a gift. Because there's usually like a tea bag or some little present in there, for them too. And, if we're giving a talk, we might give a little plant away. So it's like, people like to get a gift. They like to feel special, and a shock and awe box feels like a little gift. We'll mail it if we feel like it's a hot lead, if we've met somebody somewhere and, we feel like we've made that connection, but we like to give it in person. Sometimes the first meeting, usually a good time to do that.
Okay, fantastic. Michele Dempsey, you are a star. You are a star. And really grateful that you could share all that with us. And we've got our 6th meeting, but what were you going to say? Your final thoughts?
I said I really do, this little, I just want to say, even though we turned it into the X instead of the 5-leaf clover, because it is better with our brand, like, that kind of putting it together, Richard, was at a summit, like I said in the beginning. So, AMI really, I have to give credit where credit's due. AMI really helped us to kind of learn how to come up with a system to market what it is we do, and we worked on getting our message right, and we've worked on these, like, it's like a muscle. You have to have discipline around it. You have to do it. You have to keep doing it. You start with 1 or 2 things, because otherwise, I told you, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Like, I can't do all this. It's too much. So we just newsletters first. Newsletters, Dirty, send them a hard copy, get that system down. When that's done and that's running itself, then move on to the next one. When that's done and running itself, move on to the next one. And that's how we sort of tackled them one by one. But a lot of, and of course, I can't say enough about my team. I just love them. They're such a big part of this. But that's, thank you, and AMI, it's been awesome. And the network of people, and I know a lot of them are out there listening, right? Another amazing part of this group are the other architects in this group, and the kind of generous sharing is unbelievable, right? Like, people just spilling their guts about what they do, and you're like, the way architects have never done. And I think it's elevating the profession, quite frankly, that we're doing this and that we're sharing with each other, because for too long we have kept all the cards close to our chest, and and it's kept us small, and it's kept us in the shadows. And I think this is like a really great. And thank you to everybody out there who generously shares with me too. I hope you got something out of this.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.